You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody. Hello and welcome once more to Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the Camino de Santiago edition. I must apologise for my voice. I appear to have got a cold and I don't sound terribly good right now. I keep forgetting to thank him, Ryan Hopkins, who has stepped up and happily seems to put the show together for me or puts it out to the public for me. And I think you'll agree, it sounded pretty darn good. Anyway, we've had another 3 days and we're still moving through, and I'm going to introduce, first of all, day number 21. Day 21, Leon, which is mile 286.7, to San Martin del Camino, mile 302.3. That's 15.6 miles, which is 0.15 miles credit, meaning a total credit of 1.35 miles. And those of you who have listened to this and know the Camino must wonder, why on earth did we stay in San Martin del Camino? Well, as you can hear in a minute, we actually didn't stay there. We ended our 2 nights in Leon, which we treated ourselves to outrageously, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. And we ended it by walking a few hundred yards back to the Camino, and then really got back at it. The forecast showed snow and rain, plus really cold, freezing cold temperatures. And frankly, Em and I took our time over breakfast. We were not looking forward to getting out into this terrible weather, or what we expected it to be terrible weather anyway. But the trail took us through the old town, and as it often does actually, and it's really lovely. You go into these towns, usually through the industrial estates, and they lead you through into what is a beautiful old town very often, and Leon was no exception. And we were taken past the glorious cathedral. It's funny, I was watching a video of a friend of ours, friend of the Mighty Blue show, Deanna McGregor, and she did the Camino recently, and we had her on the show before we started these Camino things. And her son commented upon the various cathedrals, and he made a very salient point which I thought of. Some of these big cathedrals are so unwelcoming. They're so gaudy and gloriously gaudy, and I love them. I love how great they look, but they're unwelcoming for the normal person, I guess. And I'm not a religious guy, but I love to see these churches. And one, for example, in Hontanas, was a beautiful, beautiful church, and you felt welcome in there. There seemed to be natural light coming in. But these big cathedrals, man, some of them are grim. Now, leaving Leon seemed to be a slow process. We went through some of the industrial areas again before hitting more shops and realising that we were actually out in the burbs. That was a bit of a surprise. And our first stop was, no, not a cafe for a beer. No, it was a pharmacia to load up once more on all the compedes that they've got. Compede is this amazing silicone stuff you put on your blisters, and I've been developing blisters for 2 or 3 a day, it seems to be. But once you put Compede on, it allows you to walk. It's amazing stuff. So I had to buy tons more of that. But to be fair, once we'd stopped up at the pharmacia, the second stop was in fact the cafe on the opposite corner for a coffee and of course a beer, as well as a donut for me. And then we came to a fork in the road. It was our first real alternate, because some of these roads take you on long straight paths alongside main roads or partly main roads. Some take you out into the country, but we were concerned with the weather coming, so we went for the straighter path in this particular case, because the sooner we got to our target for the day, the better we thought it would be for us. We've noticed far less people on the trail recently. with some regulars popping up, but the numbers are definitely down. People we see again, time in, time out. We stop at a bar, they stop at a bar, they're already at a bar, or we just see them walking along the road and we just catch up with them, which is really, really nice. But the numbers are so down. I'm sure a lot of people either, drove through the Meseta or they cycled through the Meseta. We reach Villadangos del Paramo, which had been our target for the day. And we bumped up yet again with Martha and Tim, knowing that there was still plenty of daylight and we were going to be staying in a hotel once more. We decided to hike on to San Martin del Camino, one of the more bland, in fact, the most unpleasant towns we've been through. There was no old section. It was all new, but it was all run down. I didn't like it at all. And we pitched up at the Los Picos bar. And this was when I have to work my magic and find somewhere for the two of us to stay for the night. And I found a place called Los Reales, about 15 kilometres away. So we called Los Reales and said, look, we want a cab to come pick us up to come to you. And then we want that guy to come and pick us up again in the morning to bring us back here. It works a dream, let me tell you. The car arrived for us and we were driven off. The hotel was a kind of rustic place, but very, very comfortable. And I think Emma and I were the only guests. And as it was my birthday, my darling Emma paid for both of our rooms, which I thought was great. I spent my birthday evening, I was 66 years old that day, alone in the bar, having a plate of meat and cheese and reading. And do you know what? I was really, really content. Yeah, my birthday was spent alone, but it was fine. I'm on a hike. That's what I'm doing, and I was happy to be there. I think when you finish your day, you tend to relax and you sit down. And Em and I normally have dinner together, but I think we'd both eaten a bit that day, and neither of us was that bothered about eating much that evening. But I thought because it was my birthday, I ought to go and do something. So I just sat in the bar, had a glass of wine and something to eat. But an unusual way to celebrate my 66th birthday. But as I say, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And you can tell now that we've really got into the swing of this, staying comfortably. We talked about it a few times and, we did some auberges, but frankly, these places are so reasonable. 45 euros as opposed to 15 or 20 euros an albergue. To me, it's a no-brainer. And if I ever did this again, I would totally be doing it this way. But as you're about to hear, we continued doing this to quite a great degree, actually. And let's hear about what happened on day number 22. Day number 22, San Martin del Camino, mile 302.3 to Astorga, mile 319.9, 17.6 miles, 2.15 miles credit, meaning a total credit of 3.5 miles ahead of schedule. Tuesday was the worst weather forecast we'd seen so far. There was 100% chance of rain in the afternoon after rain very early on. So it didn't look great, I've got to tell you. And we still didn't know whether or not we were going to get snow, but it wasn't looking good. So Em and I chose to sleep in and miss the early rain. We joined each other for breakfast at 9 o'clock before we headed back to San Martin by the taxi, before we restarted our hike for the day just before 10 o'clock. And the great thing about that was everybody before us had got completely drenched. Well, not great that they've got drenched, but great that we didn't get drenched. It's amazing. We've talked about how we seem to have been avoiding the weather. I know behind us there's tons of snow. Ahead of us there was tons of snow. We appear to be leading a bit of a charmed life, avoiding this weather. And by heading out later, we missed that rain in the morning. Now, I've been wearing my tethers all the time. I've got to tell you, I've just loved those tethers. But in anticipation of this wet day, we quickly knocked off the 4 miles to Hospital de Orbigo because we were following the road and we had a straight, fast path. And because I was wearing those tethers before, I decided today that I'd wear my shoes. And I must say, it really did help. I thought I was going to get wet, but I actually didn't in the end. My feet are really starting to hurt less and less, and the Compeeds are definitely doing their job. At Hospital de Orbigo, I don't know what hospital actually means, actually, there's a magnificent low footbridge that approaches the main town, and Em and I were eager for our first beer. We thought there's bound to be loads of open bars there. Only to find there was virtually nothing that was open. There was a shop, and there was a cafe right at the very beginning, which we passed by. So we got straight through the town, and you know what? We'd been walking by a road all morning. We just didn't fancy doing it anymore. And even though that is a quicker way and a shorter way, we thought we'd go back into the countryside. And to be fair, there was the promise of a cafe and a bar through the countryside. And anyway, so we'd had enough of this traffic noise for the day, and so we happily headed out into the country. When we got to Villares, it was closed. I mean, almost literally everything was closed. Emma was frantically walking around and just couldn't find anywhere open. Luckily, we saw an auberge, which was completely unoccupied by guests, but there was a German, I think she was a German woman, actually. She was Belgian woman. She was Belgian. She spoke German. She was lovely. She was out the front, and she said, come in and have a beer. So, of course, we went in and had a beer. She was sitting there knitting. I just think she was grateful for the company. Em and I sat there just chatting with her and had a beer, and it was a donativo, so we gave her a couple of coins and headed out again. And she said to us, this was the better route that we'd taken. Coming this way, the countryside was more beautiful. And she was absolutely right. It was glorious. And so we were satisfied. We had our beer. We headed off again. And we bumped into that American family. Remember Kelly and Jen? I interviewed Kelly early in the podcast. But he and his family had a tough time. They'd fallen sick together. They thought it was the water. They weren't sure. They thought it was the water, could have been the food. But frankly, with people living in such close proximity to one another in these albergues, I can see why diseases get around or illnesses get around. But they all got this stomach cramps, and Kelly looked dreadful, and I told him that. And so I'm not telling you anything that I didn't tell Kelly. And he said that he felt so bad, they called the doctor. And the doctor, when he saw him, he called the ambulance. But an hour later, Kelly had improved. He'd recovered dramatically, and he was able to tell the ambulance he didn't need to go. But, when you're in a foreign country, it must be kind of tough. It must feel bad. You must feel terrible, and so alone and out there. But they came through it as a family. As I say, he looked lousy. This was yesterday, because I'm recording now on Wednesday. But we saw him again today. He looked great again, but he was looking pretty lousy that day. But you know what? The rain still hadn't materialised, and the forecast, which was 100% chance of rain, now said the rain was due at 3:45 in the afternoon. So Em and I just rushed on. We bumped into them, but we were moving along, and we pushed on to Astorga, this kind of a biggish town. It took quite a while to get into, and we didn't go the direct route into town, so that was slowing us down. We were watching the rain clouds forming, and a few spots had started. And we pushed on to the Hotel Spa Ciudad de Astorga. Yep, we stayed in a hotel with a spa. It was my turn to do the laundry, and so I went around the corner to a laundromat, and the heavens absolutely opened. I spent a very pleasant hour in the laundry with a homeless man who was doing his own washing, taking things off and putting them back on again as they came out of the tumble dryer. He seemed entirely unconcerned and said he'd be sleeping rough that night, but it wasn't very nice. But he was such a lovely man. He was helping me with the laundromat, telling me what I needed, and a really nice guy. I've gotten really well with him. I'd kept on my hiking stuff I'd been hiking in during the day, and because we were expecting this rain, I was wearing a lot of hot clothes. I'd sweated up a lot, and that sweat was cooling, and I got colder and colder and colder. Emma was happily in the spa, but I got back to my room, and I just got under this rain shower in my room, this hot rain shower, one of the nicest showers I've ever had in my life. Because, when the cold gets to your bones, this had got to me today. We've had some really cold weather these last few days, starting every morning in the 30s, which is just above freezing. And, it just got to me. And as you can hear, as I say, I've got a bit of a cold. But yeah, I had this great this great shower, and I felt so much better afterwards. So Em and I went downstairs. It was still pouring with rain, which is when you want it to rain, of course, when you're not actually on the trail. We had dinner and a few glasses of wine in the hotel restaurant, and it was a really, really nice evening, and we really liked the place. And as you're about to hear, we liked it so much that I'll tell you in a minute. Yeah, we did like it so much, this place, and as you're about to hear, we liked it so much that we thought we'd come back again. Here is day 23. Day number 23. Astorga, which is mile 319.9, to Rabanal del Camino, mile 332.3. Just 12.4 miles, which is a 3.05 miles debit, meaning we've wiped out nearly all of our credit. We've got a total credit of 0.45 miles. This is the first time that we've actually done this. Actually, we've stayed twice in the same place before, but it was ahead of us before. We booked another night in Astorga. Emma absolutely loves the spa. So what we decided to do was to hike out for about 12 miles before taxiing back and getting stuck into the spa again. Well, why not? Why heck not? 45 euros. Why would you not do that? Now, it was definitely a day of two halves for me. We set out by this, once again, another glorious cathedral. We made our way out through the town and onto a beautiful path alongside a very, very quiet road. Knowing that we were coming back had really put a spring in our step, and we did the 4 miles pretty quickly. I called my sister-in-law Thelma. I used my stick pick so she can see where we're walking along, and we keep marveling at the technology. I mean, I'm recording this podcast on my iPhone, and it's just an amazing way in which we can put these things together. I was enjoying the whole thing, and and the weather had taken such a definite turn for the better. As I said to you, it rained all last evening when we weren't on the trail, obviously, and it seemed to have rained itself out. The sky was a beautiful shade of blue. The path was dried out nicely. So we took loads and loads of snaps. I recorded a video as well. We were going along, coming towards a small town, anticipating a quick beer, as you do. And we took a wrong turn. I don't know how we did that. And it led into a field where Emma spotted 2 giant hares, or wabbits. So at least we got some wildlife from our navigational error. This is actually the only wildlife we've seen. The great thing about the Guthooks app, and I recommend it to any of you who are going to do this trail, Guthooks app works really well. It shows you the back streets of some of these tiny, tiny little towns, so you can easily find yourself back on track. So, of course, this navigational error called for an early beer and a coffee, and our day was starting to run to the normal script. There was more uphill today, though, than recently, but nothing too onerous. However, after one stop where I wanted a donut, we got a Snickers instead. I told Emma about a time when I was on the AT when I filmed myself having a quiet Snickers on a break. And that I'd been going really well up to that point, but from then on, after I'd had that Snickers, I lost my mojo. Well, I don't know why I ever say things like that, because of course it happened again. I totally lost my mojo. I don't know what it was. I'm sure it wasn't the Snickers, but I just never regained my motivation for the day. I was knackered, exhausted, to be honest with you. We hiked along a beautiful path with plenty to see on both sides, as well as snow-capped mountains ahead. But I just wasn't feeling it today. By the time we reached Rabanal del Camino, I was pretty much done. We were hoping actually to go a little bit further up a hill, which would have got rid of the big climb tomorrow morning. But frankly, I just wasn't into it. So we walked through Rabanal until we found this place called El Refugio, an excellent little restaurant that served us the menu del dia of fish soup, fried squid, creme caramel and a bottle of wine between us. A bargain for 12 euros each. And I strongly recommend that to you. I managed to get this barmaid to understand what I was talking about, that I needed a cab, and she found me one in Astorga who spoke English. So he had to come out to us. So we timed it for, I don't know, half hour, but it was going to take 25 minutes to get out to us. So we timed it so while we were eating our main course. And half hour later, there he was. He turned up. Perfect timing. And it really was perfect timing for us because a bunch of our Camino friends had shown up and they were speculating that the cab might well be ours. They've heard that we've got this penchant for going back to going to hotels and so on, and that we were likely going to be getting a cab. And just as they were talking about it, we walked out the restaurant straight into the cab and we all laughed about it. Our timing on the restaurant could not have been better. So after 12 miles, this Wednesday was about to turn into a spa day. And so it was. We went back to the hotel, went to the pool, went to the steam room, went to the sauna, went to the jacuzzi. Happy, happy days. There's tons of ways to hike this hike. And, you know, if you want to go into auberges all the time, sleep with 20 people around you, God bless you, if that's what you want to do. For me, I've done that a few times now. I'm good to go. 45 euros, 50 euros for a nice room in a comfortable place. I'm happy. Emma and I have found the way in which to hike. We like to hike this hike, and it really, really suits us. So that's it. 3 days. We're pretty much on target. We still expect to finish when we said we'd finish, so that's looking good. We're taking it much easier now. And frankly, I think we're enjoying it more. I think we're recovering better. We're able to I don't know, just relax more. And I find that that's good for the soul. It's good for how you feel. We're going to be walking every single mile. We're not cheating on any miles at all. And tomorrow morning, when the cab comes back, we're going to drive right back to that same El Refugio. In fact, we're probably going to have breakfast there. Actually, it'll be quite early, so we probably won't be having a beer, but we'll be having breakfast there and then heading on up that hill. And we go back up. I think that's the second highest point on the Camino for us. So that's going to be a tough morning to start with. But I think starting tomorrow morning when I feel better is a good thing. I really wasn't feeling it today. And I think you've got to know your body sufficiently to know when it's time to take it easy and, you know, and just accept you can't do any more that day. I'm feeling good about the hiking though. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I've lost about 10 pounds in weight. I'm not actually sure. Emma's convinced she's lost weight as well. But, you know, this has been an experience. I've met tons of really, really lovely people. Everybody's kind. Everybody's happy. Everybody's enjoying themselves. And everybody enjoys bumping into other people. And that expression, buen camino, is a really nice way to pass somebody in the day. Anyway, that's where we are. We'll see you again next Monday for 4 more days catch up. And that will be the second for last, probably the third from last, no, second for last, before we actually get to Santiago. Okay? I'll see you next time.